Okay, welcome to another episode of the Life of Elvis podcast. I'm your host Elvis, and today with me is Dr. Marcia Martin from LA, who is a heart healer. So we're happy to have you on. Tell us a bit more about yourself then.
I have been loving and living with the angels for as long as I can remember, and I'm just excited to be able to share them with you and all of your listeners and introduce you to a new way of looking at the world through the heart as opposed to through our physical eyes. And one of the things that I love the most, I don't know if you're familiar with the Heart Math Institute, but they do quite a lot of research about the physical heart and your breathing and the way you can control your reactions and allow the brain to kind of calm down and slow down. And they're very scientific in their approach, so I love their research because it backs up what I receive energetically. And the Heart Math Institute, now they're referring to the physical heart. I work in the energetic heart. But in the physical heart, they're saying the heart actually has more neurons that go to the brain than the brain has neurons that go to the heart. So today I'm going to invite everyone to begin seeing, thinking, and living from the heart space instead of the head. Allow the heart to lead instead of the head. Allow your thoughts to be surrounding why you love and accept yourself instead of why you need to be critical or condemning about what you may or may not have done.
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward to this. And this is what we really need over here in the West, because our society, it's just so driven by our intellect, by the rational, and even though we are super irrational beings, we don't want to admit it, but we need the balance of between the both hemispheres of the brain. So
well, and I began my early career. My master's is in educational and developmental psychology. And I was in education for a very long time, and I believed everything began and ended with the brain. Even though I taught through the heart and to the heart, I was convinced that I was helping their brain, helping them get a better sense of self, and that would make them better learners. But now, all this time later, I'm able to look back and see it was because they felt genuinely loved and accepted. They felt like they were important, that they were able to relax enough and consume whatever it was that I wanted to share with them. It wasn't they needed more facts, they needed more love, and then they could relax and participate in whatever was being taught so that they could learn it. And I think if we as a society could take a step back away from the brain, away from the whole idea of intelligence, and get back into our heart and just say what feels good, I think everything would become easier. When you feel good, you're naturally more enthusiastic, you're more engaged, you're more willing to try. And what makes a good learner? Enthusiasm, paying attention, willingness to try, not being afraid, willing to do repetitive information, tasks over and over again. So, let's just put the brain on hold and say, hello, energetic heart space. What can you show me today? How can you bring me to the place where my life feels better so that I will naturally want to do those things that will give me a better quality of life?
how do you make the step from working in education to what you're doing now? What led you to it?
Oh, it was a long journey, boy. You know, I had so much incredible angelic support along the way. At the time, I didn't recognize it, but looking back, I see how every step was orchestrated. So all I have ever wanted to do was teach. I really enjoy the whole idea of watching people light up with new information, new knowledge, and to begin feeling more secure about themselves and their position in life, because they have what they believe is knowledge that will give them power over their life. Now, what I know now is it is our heart connection to the divine, to the creator, to the source, whatever you want to call it, but it's that heart connection that gives us the guidance, that gives us the freedom to explore and to feel confident. But at the time, I believed it was knowledge that opened the door to freedom. So I always wanted to teach. However, my life purpose was really to discover this whole idea about the energetic heart space and how living within it means that you are empowered, that your life is transformed, and then you can live in total freedom. So I needed a few little nudges along the way. And the first one was when I was teaching, first they started bringing in end of grade tests. And teaching changed dramatically. It suddenly became, now we have to get the perfect score at the end of the year, or else our school will be under review. And, we can lose our jobs, we can lose our raises. There were all sorts of conditions that went along with this. So it was push to make sure everybody got the information to pass this end of grade test. And that just took away all of the joy of being in the classroom. Then we started having sexual allegations, sexual abuse against children in the classroom. And down from on high, they say, okay, you can't hug your children, your classroom children anymore. I'm an elementary school teacher. They sit on my lap. I hug them good morning. I hug them goodbye. I hold their hand. There was a lot of touching, physical touching, that went into letting them know that they were loved and important. And so that was another thing where I was like, I just am feeling like I belong less and less in this world. Mm-hmm. It's getting so rigid and so constrained, and all of the ways that I know to teach and to add value are being squeezed out, and instead we're being told, practice for the test, practice for the test, practice for the test, and don't touch anybody. And it just felt so alien to be in that space. So I left that and started, a whole bunch of crazy other jobs, and finally landed in a place of just such darkness and desperation. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because when we're moving further and further away from our life purpose, which is where we're going to find joy and meaning, our life is going to have less meaning, less light, less love, less joy. It's just going to constrict. You're going to find yourself getting smaller and smaller. So it was actually wonderful that everything that I tried sort of fell apart or ended up being untenable for one reason or another, so that I was sort of forced into this box where I finally had to say, okay, I give up. I can't do it my way anymore. I can't push any harder. I can't pretend that everything is okay. I'm just at the end of the road. And at the end of the road was the place where I fully, for the first time, began opening up to the divine, to their teachings, to their guidance, to their truth. And that led to letting go of all of the trauma, the abuse, the limitations, the rigidity, the rituals, letting go of everything in the way I thought it should be, and opening up to a whole new world of compassion and understanding that just allows me to flow in harmony with what is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do want to say something that I think is really important for those who are searching and feel there's only one creator, one source, one divine essence that has connected and created all of us. So it doesn't matter how you get there, and you will never be turned away. If perhaps you want to go completely woo-woo and you love, the crystals and pyramids and all of the psychic realm, or if you want to go the straight science route, there are no prohibitions and there are no restrictions, because no matter how you do your exploring, you will always end up here in the heart space, in alignment with the divine, if you stay on the path long enough and you really open to the experiences. So I don't want anyone ever to feel as though they need to believe in angels, or they need to carry crystals in their pocket, or they need to give up their science understanding. All of the universal laws are science-based and hold true to scientific principles. They are all physics in their physical, in their orientation, so follow along with the law of physics, especially the law of attraction. One of the ways that I love to explain it is it's as though it's a boomerang that is capable of magnetizing and magnifying your thoughts. So you throw the boomerang out and you know that it's coming back to you. We throw our thoughts out, we make them more attractive when we attach to them emotionally. Now we've given them a charge, and we cannot be then surprised that when they come back to us, they have something similar, only bigger than what we sent out. And Einstein began the understanding of these principles for us when he said, matter can never be destroyed, can never be created or destroyed. It already is. So everything you're going to engage with already is. It can only change form, and that's including you. So bring your science, bring your skepticism, bring your inquiring mind to this place, or bring your open mind and your really wanting it to be magical to this place, and you will still have the same results, you will still meet the same being, and you will still create a life that is deeply improved from the one that you were living when you thought that your life had to be full of rules that were imposed, either by society or your own limitations or by a cultural or religious affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just so excited that every law that you may encounter in what they call the New Age way of thinking is provable through science and is just following a specific principle. And that is done on purpose, because we need to understand that none of us could exist in a chaotic world. And so this beautiful divine being has created perfect order for us. And in order to receive that order, instead of interacting with the chaos, it just asks you to line up with what they have already created. Just be in the flow of what already is. Be open to it. Be willing to accept it. Be curious. Be teachable, be willing to be guided, and then see how much freedom you have within the structure as opposed to how much restriction you have within the chaos.
Beautiful. And let me just ask you, do you come from a religious background, or?
Sort of. I mean, I was the family that went to church every day. I mean, every week. And it was considered an important part. But there was no real relationship. There was, oh, this is our religion, and these are the prayers that we pray. But we do that on Sunday, and, the rest of the week, you just do your own thing. You don't look for a personal relationship because God doesn't really particularly like you or want a personal relationship, not really interested in helping you, and you're really just here to be in the servant capacity, to do good works, to be a nice person. That was my religious upbringing.
Right.
There was never a partnership. It was only, you're down here, servant, and God is this massive, fabulous being that you can never hope to identify with. So you must constantly live your life in service to others.
Yeah, I totally understand it. This is one of the reasons why I never got involved in any religion myself, to be honest. Because it creates a big separation between you and basically the rest of the universe. And that's the literally the opposite of any mystical transcendental experience that we can actually have as humans.
Yes, and when we look at the religion, any religion, at its point of origin, so it would be the Christ or Buddha or Muhammad. At its point of origin, it is designed to bring people closer to this God they don't understand. It is designed to create unity. It's designed to have love as the foundation, the cornerstone for how you live your life. And somehow all of them have devolved into rules and restrictions and
empty rituals.
Yes, Judaism, lots of rules, all these major religions, and I'm not picking at any one. Catholicism, yikes, they've got lots of rules. I'm not picking at religion. It's just when you study it from its origin point, and then you look at what it's become, it's a travesty to see that what they wanted to bring forward has been so polluted by, yes, they needed to create a structure, and that's a good thing, but I think much of it has lost the original essence.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
Truly, if we study the life of the Christ, and that is the energy that I know the best, but if you study the life of the Christ, it is all about love and acceptance. It is all about a personal relationship with the divine. It is all about becoming more by allowing yourself to let go of your limitations. It's never about being poor as a sacrifice, or hurting yourself as a sacrifice, or being one of the chosen. It is always inclusive. It is always finding the part inside each person that will unlock their potential. And somehow it has become, oh, we're the only good ones and everybody else stinks. And that's a sad thing.
Yeah, it is very sad. Because at the end of the day, I do, I'm not a religious person, like I said. I don't subscribe to any organized religion. but I do have more in common with these people than probably with an atheist. I probably gonna find more common. And in fact, with some of my friends, like I had a friend who was a devoted Muslim, and I could see that there was so much overlap. It was mainly more of the cultural barrier which skewed things up. I tend to explain things in certain ways. People from other cultures that subscribe to ideas that can come from 1500 years ago, they tend to explain things a bit differently, but in the essence it's all the same. The source of it is the same. And like you said, Christ, I never really look into Christianity that much. There's a lot of things that put me off, from it. But like what you were saying, it's love, unconditional love, compassion. There's one thing that all religions have in common. And it's also funny that Christianity and some of these other religions which do all these rituals and which don't really go that deep, it's literally the same as what happened during Buddha's time. Because I was always more interested in the Far East, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, that kind of stuff. And during Buddha's time, that was also the case with Hinduism. People were practicing these rituals, but didn't really go that deep. Empty rituals, pretty much. And Buddha, he wanted to change that. So he was a bit of a rebel, kind of like Christ in his time. So Buddhism kind of moved away from it, and you don't really have, it's more like a philosophy, which I really like about it, to be honest.
Well, what did Buddha do? Buddha spent his entire quest was to develop that personal relationship. Mm-hmm. It was to get away from the material so that he could just spend that time understanding the deep inner knowing of that Christ mind, that Christ light that is within us all. And I don't mean that by Christianity terms. I don't consider the Christ consciousness to be Christian. I consider it just to be an awareness of the divine. And, that's one of the things I wrote my doctoral dissertation on really studying the life of Jesus to understand why this person was so much more able to commune and to stay in the divine alignment than we are. And, just comparing that to Maslow's hierarchy of, Maslow was American psychologist who said that there's a hierarchy of needs, and the pinnacle is self-actualization. But before that, you need food, clothing, and shelter, and you need acceptance. You need all these things, and without them, you're never going to reach here. And so the psychologist in me was a little offended by the fact that, well, what if you spend your whole life and you live in poverty? Are you going to tell me that you cannot become a self-actualized person because you are unable to meet these basic needs? And so I chose to look at the life of Jesus to see, okay, what's different here? Because technically Jesus didn't own anything, didn't have a fabulous house, and met with a lot of disapproval during his life. And the difference was, when you are completely connected to the divine, all of the outer trappings no longer are necessary. However, you will have access to them because you lose the fear of being without any of these things, and you become really focused on this divine pinnacle. All of these lower vibrational products, not low vibration like negativity, but like food and shelter and clothing, don't vibrate nearly as high as communicating with the divine and being in that aligned state. So if you're already here, all of these things have to be part of this super thing. So that's what Jesus did. Jesus remained in this pinnacle of exploration and then had no fear that his physical needs would be met. And so what do we see him doing? Well, he goes to give a sermon, and there he is with all of these disciples who have watched him do miracle after miracle. And yet they say at the end of this speech, well, that was a really good speech, but gosh, you've been talking all day, and these people are hungry, and nobody thought ahead to bring food. So, why don't you just be quiet and tell them all to go home? Because we can't care for these people. We're just poor, and we don't want the burden of these people. And Jesus looked at them and said, oh, there's more than enough for all. And took the meager offering of a couple of loaves and a couple of fish, blessed them, said, oh, I know there's always enough, and proceeded to feed the entire crowd. It is such a different way of being when you are no longer afraid of the physical because you are so aligned with the energetic. And then everything that you desire or that is necessary for your physical well-being starts getting added on automatically because you're always within the blessing stream as opposed to out on your own island where nothing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love the fact that you can have it all without any kind of strain or struggle when you are in alignment. Buddha knew this, Muhammad, the Christ, all of the major religions understood that the center point for everything is that personal relationship, that understanding that you are worthy and that you are seen as valuable and that you can expect to have your needs met when you allow that relationship to be the center point of your life. Because then you're within that flow of information, blessings, synchronicities.
Sure, I didn't expect to talk that much about Christ and religion, but super interesting. Yeah.
Well, I do not consider myself a religious person. Mm-hmm. However, I love examining the life of Jesus because it's well documented, number one. And number two, he defied every convention of the time, every restriction we believe that we are encountering, and was able to do his work and lead others without any kind of... He didn't try to take political office. He didn't try to grab power from others. It was really the power of love and the understanding of what it is like to own your own power, to be in your own self, taking responsibility for you. He showed us how powerful we could be and how much of an impact we could make when we live our life that way, as opposed to looking around for somebody to blame or trying to grab power or money or prestige.
Yeah, just to quickly summarize it, everything starts from within. All these external stuff, whether it's books, rituals, money, all that stuff, it doesn't matter. It all starts from within, and we all have all the answers within. Like you were saying about the Maslow's hierarchy, that you have to have your needs met, and you move up towards self-actualization. Made me think of Buddha's story when he met these what are called bhaktis, a bunch of ascets who were really basically torturing their own bodies to reach enlightenment. And he did that for a while too, but then he moved away from it and they thought that he went off the rails and stuff. And that's when he found the golden middle path, right? So he obviously didn't live in absolute poverty, the worst possible, torturing his body like them did. But he also didn't go super crazy and live like a king, like he used to. You know? It's all about middle path, and both of these things, whether it's living super poor or being super wealthy, that doesn't guarantee either of it. Self-actualization or connection with the spirit, or even just happiness. It all starts from within.
Yes, it does. And that living outside myself was what brought me to that final place of, okay, I can't go any deeper into the darkness than I already am,
Mm-hmm.
And the path to the light has all been moving from the inside, looking at the inside, bringing light to the inside, and letting go of whatever was happening or whomever was doing whatever on the outside, and just learning to trust that I would be in the right place at the right time with the right people if I worked on the inside. But as long as I kept looking outside of myself for the next job, the next societal acceptance, I was always going to be slightly off.
Mm-hmm.
And getting deeper and deeper into that state of despair, because then you begin assigning labels to yourself like, oh, what a failure. Oh, look at that. You failed again. There's just no way to win if you are asking the outside world to validate you. But there's no way to lose when you are in alignment with your own self and living your best life. And Buddha really taught that beautifully with that middle way. You don't need the excesses. As you said, it doesn't matter whether it is a lot of money or not at all. You don't need the excesses. You need to be in the middle, in alignment, walking that path, feeling good about you. And then everything you desire will be attracted to you as you need it. And the other thing that I have learned, which, I began this journey thinking, gosh, I hope God lets me keep a house to live in. And because my view of God was a pretty angry, stern, punishing type of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I have learned is that it's not the same for every person, the middle way. The middle way is what feels good to your heart. So if I need to have 9 houses and, I don't know, billions in the bank in order to do the work that is in alignment with my highest good, I will find a way to have that. If, on the other hand, that money and those properties would be burdensome, then I can be released from them and just live a very simple life and still find my way in the world and live my purpose.
Yes.
So I think it's important. We don't need to look to anyone else or to the world to tell us what we need. Look to your heart.
Yeah, you do have all the answers within. And that was a good point.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people...
Well, and it was very...
Go on.
It was very scary for me because I thought, okay, I am a deeply empathic person, which meant that when my heart was filled with prior abuse, trauma, and baggage from myself, situations, and other people, my heart was seeing life through its own filter and would make decisions that were not very proactive toward me. It was always, what does the other person need? How can I help them? What sacrifice do I need to make in order to make sure they are okay? And so when the divine first shared with me, okay, you got to go all in the heart, I was petrified, because the heart, while it was clouded with fear and lack and loss and pain, had led me off in some pretty tough directions. And the thought that I was going to have to trust this energy was very scary. So we are not talking about the damaged heart that is still holding on to pain, trauma, abuse, limitation, cultural, societal, or other restrictions. We are talking about the cleared and healed heart that is in alignment with your greatest good and is capable of receiving direction and acting on that direction. So please be clear that if you are still feeling in a muddle because of all that you've experienced, you are going to need to do the work to clear and heal your heart before you are going to be able to walk the middle way, to walk the path that feels good. You've got to be able to hear the divine in their pure form and not with your baggage before you're going to be able to get a clear message.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth going on this path, because then you discover that you'll be holding on to a great gem all the time. And this is
yes. I mean, it's like,
this is one of the things that always gets me. I remember seeing just very recently a poll on YouTube where someone was asking whether you think that the human nature is good or evil. So A, B options. And most people said that the human nature is not good. And this is just such a huge misconception. And it's so prevalent.
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very sad because, you know, even when you look at the evidence, scientific evidence, you know, from an evolutionist standpoint and everything, we are hardwired to be loving and compassionate. That's how we survived all the way until now.
Absolutely, and it is within every being that exists. Even take the animals. All animals know how to care for their young. That is a level of compassion that is instinctual. So we need to remember that at our core, we deeply care. Now, the reason that you may not be able to act on that is because of your own wounding. But it is so worth it to release the wounding so that you can get back to the part of you that is truly you. And the wonderful thing is, you will maintain your deep sensitivity and your deep compassion and your deep ability to care. But you will no longer be vulnerable, because now you're not looking for someone else to validate you from the outside. So you're no longer vulnerable to their pain or their unkindness. Now you can see it for what it is. Oh, they're in pain. Okay, they are not trying to be unkind toward me, even though they may be doing so. They are in pain and reacting to their pain. So if I share love and compassion with them, it will be an opportunity for them to choose love and compassion instead of their pain. Some people will not be able to do that, and that's okay. You don't need to be in the same circle with people who are unable to love you or treat you in the way that you want to be treated. It is okay to walk away, even if it's a family member. Now, what I tell my clients is, if it is a family member, it will be more difficult in most cases for you to walk away. So I suggest just gently closing the door. You don't need to put a million locks on there. You don't need to put up storm shutters and hammer up wood to make sure it can't be moved. It's okay to gently close it with love. And then as you begin to heal, as you begin to feel stronger, you may want to interact with that family member again, or members, and you just see how you feel. Am I able to hold my center? Am I able to come out of this meeting or dinner or whatever it is and still feel good about me? Or, oh gosh, no, they still make me feel terrible, or I really find myself reacting to their insults or their abuse, and so I don't want to be part of this. Okay, so you close the door again, you continue to grow, and then you can keep checking back in to see whether it's comfortable for you. At some point you may decide, you know what, I just can't do this. It offers nothing of value to me, and that is fine. I just don't want anybody to make decisions from their place of wounding. What I encourage everyone to do is heal and then decide. Unless you are in an abusive situation, you can stay and heal. You're going to need help, you're going to need support, but every decision that you make when you're wounded is going to be a reflection of your wounds. Every decision you make from your point of alignment will be a reflection of your freedom, your alignment, and your truth. And I would much rather having you make decisions from that high place than from the low place of wounding. Because what happens when you make decisions from your wounded place is perhaps you get out of that situation, but probably within 6 months you will be back in another situation that is similar and could be even worse. This law of attraction is going to continue to be operating even when you are not clear. It's going to keep bringing back to you what you are putting out, your thoughts and your feelings. It goes where your focus goes. So if you're focused on what's wrong, more what's wrong is going to be presented to you.
Yeah, it's kind of like when two people break up and one of them is like, so I got fed up, so I grabbed my stuff and I left. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what you did. You took all your issues and put in a bag for the next relationship.
Yes, and it's kind of like, okay, imagine that you're going on a world tour. And so you got to pack for this world tour, and it's going to be a 6-month adventure. Well, you can either pack a whole bunch of steamer trunks full of clothing and accessories and everything you think you'll need, or you can take a carry-on bag and say, it's so exciting to go to these different places, and I am so aligned with this trip that I know that everything I need will be there waiting for me when I get there. When you break up and take all those issues with you, you got your steamer trunks following along behind you, and it gets heavy. It gets really heavy after a while, and unless you're a weightlifter, I wouldn't recommend carrying around that much baggage. And the weightlifters would say, we don't carry it around. We pick it up and put it down. We build up. We don't drag anything with us because we know that just wears your muscles.
Yeah, there's one quote that I really like. Many times it comes back to my mind. Yeah, it's from the movie Interstellar, when they said the only way how people ever figured out how to get somewhere is to leave something behind. And it's so true.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And even with the stuff we are talking about being in alignment with your true nature, your heart space, or whatever you may call it, to do that, you really need to get rid of all the judgment, all the conditioning, all the programming from society and from other people, all the trauma and all the past hurt. And that's how you get to something that's always been there. It was just covered up by all these layers.
That is such a great point, because that was one of my fears is, I'm being asked to give up all of this, or being told I can't take anyone or anything with me. Oh, but I love my children so much, and, my pets, and that is a human misconception. You cannot take the garbage, the low vibrational products, fear, negativity, selfishness, jealousy, resentment, anger, blame, shame. Those can't come with you. You bring your loved ones, you bring your pets, because you are love. They're going to gravitate toward you. They're going to want to be with you. You are creating a welcome home, you've got your welcome mat out front. Your home now becomes magnetic to all those who want to find a place of joy and comfort and acceptance. So no one is ever going to ask you to give up what's working in your life, but you are voluntarily going to want to give up all of the things that have held you back. And sometimes that can include people. If you are in a relationship that isn't working, it may not survive you becoming more in alignment. The other person or people will also have the opportunity to rise and to grow and to learn as you are doing. They may choose not to. This is not they're bad, you're good, you're bad, they're good. None of that. This is just they have chosen to stay in the place where they are, and you have not. And you may not be able to sustain a relationship, especially intimate relationships, when you decide to go all in with your growth. And that's not a bad thing. That's just, you had this lovely time. I hope it was lovely. Sometimes they're not always lovely. You had this time with the other person or people, and they helped you get ready to grow. And you decided to take advantage of this time and to grow, and they've decided they're comfortable where they are. And that's okay.
Yeah, it sure is. It's like gotta move on and do what you need to do. So,
and no reason to hold any resentment or judgment. I have much fewer people in my life than I used to, but every one of those that have chosen not to come with me, I still think I have very fond memories. I have no interest in continuing the relationship, but I have very fond memories, and I'm very grateful, even for the people and the situations that caused me deep distress. They helped me get to the place where I had to move forward. And so I'm almost more grateful to the abusers than I am to the helpers, because the abusers, the traumatic situations, the confusion, the chaos, that all helped get me to the place of no return. And it's a beautiful place to be now that wasn't so great before.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, I've experienced it in my life too. You probably on a subconscious level, or some people would say your higher self is guiding you, in a certain direction, which might feel uncomfortable at first. But it is the path you're supposed to go to, so you can learn and you can grow. And that's been my life for the past 7 or 8 months, to be honest. Also went through a breakup, which was at first pretty hard, and I sure didn't like that, when it happened. But afterwards, everything that came to me, thanks to that, it's the universe, or my higher self, or angelic guides. I don't know what it was, but it made up in such a great way, that I'm, so much happier than I ever was. right now.
Yes, and we are hopeful that the other person is also experiencing that. But I want to make sure that people understand you do not have to wait until you're perfect to begin this journey. Now, I like to say everyone already is perfect. However, we are not complete. Our life journey is all about becoming more so that we can become complete as the divine are complete. And I see them as a unit, a female-male unit, so I call them they, as opposed to he or she. So it's great for us to want to expand and to explore, and that is hardwired just like our compassion is hardwired. But it's very important that everybody understand that you don't have to wait. When I began my journey, I was not in the territory of hearts and flowers. I was angry, I was ashamed, I was resentful, I was poor me, seeing myself as a victim, and lost. There was no moving out of that space without divine intervention. They're not waiting for you to be perfect. They see you as perfect. They are waiting for you to be ready. And ready means that you say, okay, I'm going to allow you to help me. It is not do it for me. They won't do it for you. They are the perfect teachers, so nothing will be done for you. They will do it with you, and they will give you guidance, and you will always have all of the help and the support and the tools that you need in order to be successful. It is up to you to put them into use. It is up to you to allow yourself to receive them. It is up to you to be consistent in the application. You don't have to. There's no punishment, but if you do, the reward is magnificent.
Yeah, sure is. So one of the things I was looking forward to talking to you about, you already mentioned it a few times here, was a topic of angels in the angelic realm. Because again, like when I was younger, before I got a lot more into spirituality, I thought, okay, this is nonsense, kind of like a lot of the, I'd say basic Christian beliefs, But later on, as I started learning about stuff and had my own experiences, I'm definitely open up a lot more to these ideas. So, and it's still one of the many things which are kind of in the back of my head, but I didn't get around to look into it properly. And as many times it happened on this podcast, it's almost like on almost every episode I do, I have something in the back of my mind which I would like to learn. Suddenly someone comes along on my podcast and I get to learn about that stuff. So, you say you had some communication with these beings, let's say. When did it start for you?
Oh gosh, I don't remember a time when I wasn't aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
So for me it was pretty easy. I spent a lot of time as a child playing in the woods, and near water was also it was woods near water, and I loved making little houses out of acorns and leaves and twigs that would kind of be tea party places for these little beings to be. And it wasn't so much that I thought that they were separate. It just seemed like they were a part of that world. They just seemed like there was this lovely presence that was always part of that natural world where I was. And so it seemed normal to talk with them out loud and to invite them to tea and have little conversations. So I guess for me, there was never a time when I didn't believe that there was a consciousness other than my own. And so that was easy. But it was when I was 13 and our church was giving us a confirmation where we had to state something that we learned about religion. I started a friendship with Jesus and really wanting to know or to understand more about this person. And at the time, he was a person who had lived once, and that was kind of it. I didn't have the understanding that I do now, that it's an energetic stream that I can interact with whenever. It was, I had him very compartmentalized, and I was very concerned and very upset because the God that I knew was a pretty angry, dissatisfied, and disappointed God. I was I was very upset that miracles only happened when Jesus was on the earth, and what was wrong with now, because there were some things going on in the world that I wanted corrected that needed a miracle. So, God, what is it? How come you don't like us? And you loved those people earlier, and you sent Jesus, and he could do miracles. Why is it that people are dying of cancer, and we're polluting the world, and bad things are happening, and you won't send anybody to help us? So that was the relationship at that time, which was very much, we were on opposite sides. God, you're bad. Why are you so mean? I'm over here. I'm not responsible for these bad things and shouldn't be asked to correct them. So what's wrong with you, God? Why don't you love us? And then that sort of evolved. Then we started getting into the paranormal, and Uri Geller came into vogue. He could bend spoons with his mind, and I thought that was the most fascinating thing in the world. I suddenly had this deep fascination with energy and what energy could do, as opposed to just being in the container, the physical container. And Linda Goodman had published a book, Love Signs, so that who you as an astrology sign would be best aligned with. And Kreskin had a magic kit. So I was just immersing myself in this world that didn't make any sense because I was not applying any scientific principles to it. But I was having a great time. I just wanted everything to magically fall together. And I started taking classes, Silva mind control classes. You can program your mind to be your servant. Still, not understanding that this is all energy. It was still things that I could control. I wanted to be in control. I wanted to have the power. And then started meeting a lot of more people that were interested in this, doing meditations. We would have healing workshops, but yet nobody at that time really made the connection between the Einstein theory of everything is energy and what we were doing. We were still all compartmentalizing it somehow. People were sleeping under pyramids to try to control the energy. It was all about how we were going to harness this, and somehow that was going to make us better. Nobody yet was saying, hey, it's an inside job. And so after my master's program, I kind of had to sit down with myself and said, well, this was all fun, but I got to get a real job and, just be an adult. And so I turned all of that off for, I guess, about 20 years. I used to have writings where some people would call it automatic writing. I just call it channeling. I still channel to this day, but I'll ask them a question about a situation, people, or even about the energetic realm, the angelic realm, and they'll give me the answer, and I usually write it because it seems to come more clearly, and I remember it better when it's written than when it's spoken. One of the problems with channeling is if you speak it, you are not creating the thoughts, so you don't have any memory of them or ownership of them. So when it's written, you get to look back and see what you have written and really get to be immersed in it. Whereas when it is spoken, people will say, "Hey, can you repeat that?" And I'm like, no. You had to catch it when it was happening. Sorry. I'll try to give you some version, but I don't have that recall. So I gave up everything. These intense writings that were just so prophetic and so profound and so helpful, gave it all up to do life on my own, and just kind of even the flower magic that that I knew so well and was such a part of me had sort of left. I was still always loving the flowers and the butterflies and the beautiful smells and the trees, but I wasn't receiving from them the way that I used to. They're almost a renewal source for us. When you are open to sharing your love with the earth will bring forth that energy of renewal and restoration to you as a thank you. And that was missing for that 20 years, and it took me about that long to just completely devolve into disaster. And that's then, once I got to that place, I began exploring again, buying programs. Oh, this will be the magic bullet. This is the one that I want. I just need to say their prayer or meditate their way or do their thing, and that will be fine. But it led me on probably what was another 10-year journey of reading every book I could get my hands on and participating in as many classes and workshops as I possibly could to get to the place where I finally understood it all has to come from within, and I need to clear and heal my heart. Once they presented that and I understood it, and then they gave me the methodology, it was the beginning of my freedom. It was the way to begin again. Now, there is never a moment in my day when I have not included the angels or asked for help or been open to guidance. Before, I used to believe, well, it's 6 o'clock, I need to get some angelic guidance right now. Now I'm just an open vessel of communication with them, and it makes my life so easy. And this is something that's so important to remember. I happen to be able to hear them, but I'm not unique. Everyone will have some way to communicate with the angelic realm. Perhaps you see them, perhaps you hear them, or perhaps you know or sense or feel them. These ways have been chosen for you before birth by you. That line of communication has never closed, and the minute you pay attention, it will begin opening again. It might be rusty, you might need to oil the hinges a little bit, you might have closed the door almost shut, but it will never shut off completely. So do some inner work and start allowing them to begin communicating with you in the way that is easiest for you to receive. Over time, all of your senses are going to be part of this communication. But you're always going to have one dominant way that is going to be your go-to methodology. That's never going to go away. The others are just going to become more enhanced. But I guarantee you that you have at least one way that you are communicating with the angels right now that you are not even aware of unless you are paying conscious attention. But it is truly my belief that none of us can make it through this life journey without angelic assistance and guidance. It's just not always us processing that it's happening.
Right. So you mentioned that you use something like channeling or automatic writing. You said also that you had like an audible experience of hearing them. I'm just being curious.
Say that again?
So you had an audible experience of hearing these beings? Right.
Yes. Now, really good thing to bring up, because this has been my life for so long, I forget to clarify. It is not as though there is an outside voice. I think that's only happened for me twice in my life that I recall. There's no outside voice. It's not like you and I speaking. And they do not speak in a voice that is other than my own. It is a voice within my head, and I know who's speaking either because they identify themselves, or I can tell by their choice of vocabulary, their cadence, and the sentence structure. Just as we all have a specific way of speaking, they do too. And they have specific areas in which they are most skilled, just as we do. So if you call on, and I'll give an example, Archangel Michael, he is an extremely powerful angel because one of his jobs is protection. Another thing that he will do is to sever you from any negativity that you are trying to tie yourself to. He'll separate you from it. So he comes across often as very stern because he's very large and very protective. However, he is filled with compassion and love, and he will never come to you and say, "You're such an idiot. What did you think you were doing?" Nor will he come to you and say, "I think you need to go kill those people or hurt or harm those people or yourself." You are never speaking with an angelic presence if they are speaking to you with condemnation or suggesting that you hurt or harm yourself or another. They can be powerful. They have a tremendous force to them. They are wise. If you see them, they can be 11 feet tall or taller. They are incredible beings of energy, but they are only love. So they may fill you up so much that you are overjoyed and crying tears of joy. They will never hurt you, punish you, or cause you to be hurt or harmed. Nor is it normal for them to create an outside voice for you to listen to. All of these things that happen outside of ourselves require a tremendous use of energy. And the angels are very efficient. So they're not going to put a lot of energy into something that isn't necessary. They're going to speak with you directly in your mind, in your voice, and let you know who they are with their choice of words and expression.
Well, that's very interesting. Because I can totally see myself, if this was, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, if someone was telling me, saying that they have some kind of communication with angels or something similar, I'd be like, oh, okay, this person is probably delusional.
Well, and there is so much crazy.
Yeah, of course.
And we have the segment of the population that is mentally ill and will say they are hearing voices. But remember, those people who are hearing those voices always report that they are telling them, they are demeaning the person and telling them critical thoughts and hurt other people or yourself. So we know that the mentally ill, schizophrenic, delusional person has not been able to open themselves up to divine communication, but they have somehow gotten stuck in the more of the egocentric mind, and they are speaking with perhaps an aspect of themselves that because they don't like themselves. So let's not confuse it. Yeah. And also, when you speak with these people, and I have had the privilege of speaking to them, there will be times when they make sense, and there will be times when you know that you are no longer speaking to somebody who is really aware. And so, if you have a person like that in your life, and they tell you, yes, I speak with angels, and they tell me you're a horrible person, you really need to question that person's validity. There are always cracks in the armor when you are presenting a facade. When you are speaking truth, it will resonate with the speaker's heart and the receiver's heart. It is impossible to hide a lie, and it is impossible to not recognize the truth when it is spoken. There is some part of you, because we all have a God connection, the God connection within you, even if it's infinitesimal, will respond to the truth when it is heard. It will feel like, no, no, and then it will come again and again, and it will just keep coming to you through different sources until you finally stop and look at it and evaluate it for yourself. And then you have the right to adopt it or to let it go, but you're never going to be able to say to yourself, I didn't resonate with that at all. There will be a part of you, that God part, that grabs onto that and says, oh, I'm home. Oh, yes, I feel safe. I feel whole. I feel complete. But it's never going to happen when you're speaking with the person who is schizophrenic. There will be moments, there will be little gems scattered throughout, but you will always feel off balance when you're in their presence, because they are off balance.
Now that you brought up schizophrenic people, I had recently some conversations with a few friends, and it's a pretty interesting topic, to be honest, because over here in the West we tend to say, they are mentally ill, it's an illness, they don't perceive reality as in the proper way like we do, right? But in for example, some native cultures, some of these people, I'm not saying every one of them, but some of these people will end up being the shamans of the tribe.
Well, yes and no. Remember, they would, in our culture here, when somebody begins separating from reality without an anchor, they have nothing grounding them. In the native cultures, they are already so aligned with the earth energy that even if they begin drifting off, they are usually drifting up into an aligned state and not down into condemnation or criticism. So they may operate in a reality that you are not comfortable with, or in a way that seems more separate than they should be. However, their deep grounding to the earth, their deep understanding of the whole oneness will hold them in place and align them with the creator energy, as opposed to letting them slip away and align with energy that is not of a high vibration.
Or just simply pumping them up with drugs.
Yes, and obviously there are lower energetic products that are looking to create chaos, to destroy, to hurt, and to harm. But they are much more prevalent in modern society, where we are bombarded by technology and other stimuli, than they are in a native culture where they are interacting with the animals, who are always in alignment, and with the plants, who are growing with their season. You know, you're not going to have a flower blooming in the snow, because that's its time to rest. So the native cultures just have that stability built in a way that we may not.
Yeah, that makes total sense, to be honest. I mean,
and if you were to talk with their shaman, there is deep respect for the messages that the animals and the whole natural kingdom deliver. So they are not in their head, they are really in their hearts, aligning with everything that's around them and using that alignment to interpret. The schizophrenic individuals are in their heads, but they are not part of the world. You know, they've separated themselves mentally, and it's almost as though they are separate physically, and they are not connected to anyone or anything. And that's why they are so vulnerable to these lower energies. The shamans are deeply rooted, so they're just not available to those energies.
I see what I mean.
And if something should happen like that, where they do become disconnected, the community is generally going to gather around them and support them into coming back into alignment with their truth. And their truth is the natural world. And that's one of the things that I love the most about this world that we live in, is if you take the time to look at even the most insignificant bug, you will see that that little being has been so perfectly cared for, that it has the camouflage, it has the coloring, it has the food source, it has all of the abilities that it needs in order to prosper in whatever environment it is within. And so that's one of the things that I tell people, my clients. I say, you know, I know that when you come from an abusive environment, you feel that you are unlovable and that God can't love you, because why would God allow this to happen to you? But I need you to look at the most insignificant creature and see that this being was so loved that it has everything it needs to prosper, and understand that you are so much more than that being, that you are loved, even though the people that were around you were unable to do it. You are still loved by the divine. And that's one of the first steps away from abuse, is to recognize that you are truly loved by the divine, even though the humans in your life may not have been able to do so.
Yeah, it's very true. And even people who do have certain mystical transcendental experiences of any kind, whether it's through meditation, through psychedelics, near-death experiences, they all pretty much say the same. You know, they got to a place where they, for first time, they were just totally loved and accepted, no exception, for who they are.
Isn't that, you know, that's why I love this so much, because you cannot approach from a direction, whether it is scientific, drug, or plant-based, or just meditative-based. You cannot approach from any direction and arrive at a place that is different. We all get to the same place.
Yeah.
And really, every religion, if you dive deep, take a deep dive, if you go down deep enough, that's their foundation. They all got confused along the way, but that is their foundation.
Yeah, totally
So
agree.
it is the most beautiful thing to see that everything proves everything else. The plant and drug experience proves the meditative experience. The science proves the plant and drug and meditative experience. There's no way that we can escape from the truth. It is always the same conclusion. There is nowhere you can go where you can get a different result.
Yeah,
And that's what's just so fabulous, is that it's all completely scientifically provable. It's all physics in action and chemistry. And if you understood what was happening, you could formalize it out. I'm not that science-based, so I can't, but I just love and used in my dissertation Einstein's theory that, hey, it was always here and it's always going to be here. All it can do is change forms.
Yeah, especially the time we are living now, it's very special and unique in many ways. Because on one side, all these philosophies, all this wisdom, let's say, from the past, which many times was very secretive, and only people in certain areas, countries, or certain groups of people knew about it. You can go to a bookstore, or even just go on the internet. We can find all this information now, and you look and you compare and really dive deep into it. From wisdom from different continents, which you never really were able to do until I think the late 19th century slowly started, and even in the late 40s, early 50s, when China invaded Tibet, all the knowledge, and they wanted to eradicate them. When they say they just push their culture out into the world, so all the world can benefit from it. And on the other side,
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it is. And on the other side,
fabulous. The internet brought us a whole new level of horror, but it brought us a whole new level of knowledge and of connectivity. And yes, it's so wonderful to recognize that there can be no more secrets. Luckily, most people now are able to read and write. And so we can't have that division that we used to have. Oh, I'll tell you what's in the Bible, what's in this sacred text, what's in here. Now we can all read it for ourselves and make our own conclusion. And yes, as you said, everything is available. It's just wonderful. We get to really dive in and see how it's supposed to work when it's not tampered with. And then we can compare it with, hey, that's kind of weird because so-and-so said it's supposed to be this way. But gee, when I read 10 other documents from all over the world, it says that it's really clear that they're like in this linear progression of truth, and I've got this crazy person over here. Oh, maybe I can give up this fear-based ritualistic thinking that was imposed upon me and start really opening up and finding freedom by developing my own belief system and doing it so in alignment with what brings me joy. That is another way to tell that you are really walking in alignment with the divine. If you are not feeling joy, and I don't mean hysterically laughing every minute of the day, I mean a sense of peace, a sense of joy, a sense of delight about the world and the people and the things in it. If you are just feel like you're under a cloud of gloom and doom, you are not in alignment. When you are in alignment, you can see the things that are wrong. You can feel the pain of other people, but you will understand that you have tools that you can offer to others that will help alleviate their pain, but you will not feel responsible for their pain. And that's a huge distinction for all of your listeners who are empathic. And an empath is someone who deeply feels the emotions of others. You can get overwhelmed quickly if you don't understand who you are and the gift that you have. So you might want to run away. You may spend a lot of time feeling suicidal. You may feel like a failure. You may feel overwhelmed. You will probably need a lot of time alone. Once you understand the gift that you have and you have some tools that you can use, you will be able to be at peace, be filled with joy and love, and still know that you are doing good in the world, even if you are not interacting with the people face to face. Energy does not require face to face or even intellectual awareness of the other person. And so that too has brought me a wonderful joy, is to know that there are people I will never meet, that I will never have a conversation with, that I may not even know exist, that will benefit from my energetic output.
Yeah, sure. I never thought about it. That is quite wonderful, to be honest.
Wayne Dyer said it best. I don't have his quote memorized, but he said that one person that holds an aligned state and lives in that place of love, joy, and peace is capable of affecting the hearts and minds of 750,000 others. And so let's just live our lives in a state of alignment and be delighted that we are positively affecting 750,000 other people that we may never meet.
Yeah. And these days it can be a lot more than 750,000 people.
Yes, because you have no idea the influence that you have. All I can tell you is that across the years I have had wonderful mentors. I'm so grateful for all of the books and all of the teaching and all of the workshops and all of the people who spent time creating material like this so I could consume it. And so I have deep gratitude for all of them, but I am also deeply grateful for every kind and loving heart. Whether you are in this metaphysical path with me or you just like sharing love, thank you for being here, for making my journey easier, because your knowledge paved the way, and may I return the favor and make the journey of everyone who comes across me in some way a little bit easier by sharing these messages of inspiration and hope and education. I knew so little about the divine when I started. I had so many false belief systems in place. So very grateful for all the education that I've received.
Yeah, sure, I'm too. So back to the angels. So what do you think they actually are? How would you explain that?
Well, the angels are omnipresent, and they never have had a physical body. There are only two exceptions that we know of. One is Archangel Metatron, and the other is Archangel Sandalphon. The angels are beings of energy that is formless. So they're omnipresent. They're able to be everywhere at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it's very important that they have this ability, because there are so many of us that need care and need guidance and are looking for their support and interaction. So the fact that they can be everywhere at once means we don't have to wait our turn. They are this wonderful energy beings that can be there for the person who may be suffering from a physical ailment, and with the person who may be struggling spiritually, without causing either one to have less attention than they may need in order to move beyond wherever they are currently. So they're beautiful, wise, energetic beings that have the vision that we cannot have, because they operate and exist in a plane that is higher than ours, so they can see a bigger picture and they can guide us more effectively because they are not lost in our forest.
Right, interesting. And have you had a visual experience with them? That you could actually see them in a way?
I have had personal experience with them where they have chosen to come in physical form, but I don't see them on a regular basis, in visions. It's more of an impression. However, there was one time, and the times that they choose to come to you are going to live in your memory and your heart forever. But it doesn't make you a better or worse person if they happen to show up physically. It just means that you are in a circumstance that requires that kind of assistance. So there was one time, part of my road to desperation was extreme financial distress. And that meant the car that I was driving would start some days and it wouldn't start other days. It would get me to a place and then I couldn't get home. And it was a struggle. So I had gone to the grocery store and managed, the car started just fine and got me there. But by the time I got back to the car, after paying for my groceries, it's not starting. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, it's getting later and later. I need to be cooking dinner. My kids are going to be hungry. This is not good. I don't know who to call. There's no one around that I can think of to help me. I feel embarrassed that I have to call somebody because I'm driving such a junk car and I'm trying to pretend I have it all together. And so I am in the car and I am trying to start it, and just nothing. And I'm trying and trying and trying, and you could wiggle the key, and you wiggle the steering wheel. You could do all these sort of little things that sometimes made a difference. This time, nothing. And I'm not paying any attention to the outside world. I'm just micro-focused on the inside of the car and what's wrong. Now, Mother God very clearly had given me a lesson on, you must put your focus on what's right, because law of attraction brings you your point of focus. But that was not a day where I was very good at holding on to that teaching, so I was completely focused on what's wrong, but still retained enough knowledge to say, okay, I really need help. Let me just sit here for a moment and open to your help and guidance. I got to set this aside and open to you. So as I'm doing that, there's a knock on the window. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm female. Not a good thing to have a knock on the window when you're by yourself, female. And I look up and very tall, nicely dressed person, really crisp, white shirt, looked like it had been come from the laundry. Very well put together, and has this lovely accent, and he says to me, "Are you having car trouble?" I'm like, yeah. But I'm thinking, I get this sense of reassurance from this person. They're very well spoken, they're very well dressed, they're being very accommodating, they're not crowding my space, they're not trying to open the car door, they're not doing anything that is going to set me on edge. They're just being respectful and asking if I need help. So I'm thinking, okay, and it's still daylight and there are people around, so I'm probably okay. said, "Oh yeah, I'm having trouble starting the car. It does this, and I've got jumper cables, so if you could please give me a jump, I'll be able to get home, and I really appreciate it." So I run to the trunk, get out the jumper cables, and the space between us prevents us from getting closer because they're concrete bumpers. So the space between us, even though we're parked nose to nose, is quite large. And I remember later thinking to myself, that's weird. While I was sitting in the car, I don't remember anyone pulling up. And yet I don't remember a car being there when I was putting my groceries in the car or when I got into the car to try to start it. So it was like this vehicle and this person magically appeared. So I go get my jumper cables, and the space is huge and the jumper cables are just normal size. So there's no way that he can help me. And there's no way for him to pull his car closer because of these concrete bumpers. Then he looks at me and he says, "Oh, no worries." And he goes to his car, little sleek black sports car, and gets this the longest jumper cables I've ever seen in my life. So I'm like, okay, wow, I didn't know they came that long. And says, "All right, now you don't need to do a thing. Just sit there. I'm going to take care of this for you. Let's let the cars stay connected for a while. Give your car a chance to come back. And you just step on the accelerator. No, I'll step on the accelerator, and you just let your car stay connected." So we do this for about 5 minutes, and then, okay, start your car. Hallelujah, it starts. Okay, now you want to press on your accelerator and make sure your engine is really running. Okay, now, it keeps me there for a little bit more time to make sure it's really okay. And as he is clearing up the jumper cables and shutting the hood for me and everything, I said, "Oh, wow, you're my angel. Thank you so much. My name is Marcia. What's yours?" And he says, it makes me cry to this day. He says, "Emmanuel." I said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Emmanuel. You are my angel." So I get home, and the whole drive home, I'm saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much." The whole drive home, they're saying to me, "Find out what his name means. Look up the name Emmanuel." I go home and I type in Emmanuel, and it says, "God is with us." And wow, I just started to cry, because at that time of such desperation, it didn't feel as though anyone was with me. And yet they bring to my rescue someone who somehow is so nicely dressed that I don't have any fear, and has these gigantic jumper cables, and has the patience to wait and to allow my car to come back to life, and happens to have the name Emmanuel. So that is one of the few times that I have actually felt like I was in the presence of a physical angel. But it was a magnificent experience, and now I generally just feel them continuously throughout the day, and hear them and see them in lights and colors and things like that, but I don't generally have a physical time with them.
A lot of people, when they hear this word, they imagine being that looks like a human, just has wings. But you mentioned something quite interesting that whilst we were chatting before we started recording. So can you repeat that? About how they present themselves to us.
Well, why don't we take them out of that box? Let's not need them. Let's not need them to look like us. Let's not need them to have a particular way. Let's allow them to be what we need, which is what they do anyway. That's the beautiful thing about the angelic presence, is that they will be what you need. They won't ask you to be what they need. So they can come to you in physical form. But as I said, that requires a lot of energy. And so they will do that very rarely, unless it's an absolute necessity. They would rather stay in their energetic form where they are just as effective and be able to minister to many than to slow their energy down so that they can be in a physical form and just be one-on-one. So take them out of the box, allow them to be an energetic stream, allow them to come as colors, as feelings, as a smell, as a beautiful song, as a sign on a billboard. Allow yourself to interact with them in all the different ways. Feathers on the ground, a gentle breeze that cools you when you need it, or just a feeling of well-being. They are loving you so much, and they are always present. So the more that you open to experience them, the more fun that you're going to have. And they're not limited, so you don't need to be limited.
Right. It's very interesting. As I was saying to you earlier that I think the only experience that I've heard about from someone, because I never had anything like this, something that would be like, okay, this is probably an angel or something, you know. But my ex's sister, that was very interesting. You know, she was like 16 and she would come over to our place to stay for sometimes even a few weeks during the lockdowns and stuff when that was happening. And at one point we started talking and she started mentioning that while she was falling asleep, probably in like a hypnagogic state between being awake and being asleep, she was able to establish contact with some other beings. Now, it definitely weren't any winged humans. It was very bizarre the way she described. All of them were very different. They would meet up in this different space, and they would give her information, you know. And she started telling us some of the stuff she was told, and both me and my ex were like, where did you get this from? I mean, we would talk about loads of things together, you know, all three of us, but we didn't really talk about what she was saying, you know, and it was very unlike her. You could tell that it was literally like someone else saying this stuff to her. So that was very interesting, to be honest. You know, it got me also a bit interested in this.
Well, let me ask you, when she was sharing some of the things that the angels were sharing with her, did you feel connected to what she was saying, or did you feel like, oh, that can't be? Did you feel a natural, like, oh, I want to learn more, or that feels so familiar, that feels right, or did you feel like she's just talking nonsense?
I definitely wasn't resistant to what she was saying, because obviously we've known each other quite well. I could tell she wasn't lying.
You've known her for a long time, so you weren't resistant, but
Yeah.
did it feel familiar to you? Did it feel like, gosh, this is like balm in a way?
Maybe not exactly like that, but sort of. It wasn't familiar in a way that I've experienced it. But then I've heard stories from other people where it was experiences, like near-death experiences, or someone taking DMT or something like that. So I knew there was a possibility.
Like, I'll give you an example. When everyone told me through my religious upbringing, well, God doesn't like you because you're a sinner. It made me feel very,
Well, that is a horrible thing
not
to
just
say, to be honest.
bad, but just like, well, then I don't want to be associated with that God.
Yeah.
Then when I developed my own relationship and I understood, oh, I am loved beyond measure, as is everyone, then I was like, oh, yes, this is truth. I know this. This feels right. This other thing that I was so adamant against isn't a truth. And as you're saying, every near-death experience, every one of these times when someone comes back and says, oh, I spoke with the angels, they never say, and God told me I was a worthless piece of poo that had no reason to be alive. Everyone says, it was so loving, I didn't want to come back, it was so wonderful, but I had to come back to share the message. It's just, to me, the most scientific, unscientific proof that we could ever have is that each one of us, no matter which pathway we have chosen to take, arrives at the same center point.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the NDE experiences. I think they're just fabulous. I have had certain people who claim they have ET experiences. Some of them said they were horribly treated. And again, I was like, I don't know, I don't think so. And then others, they're just more intelligent, more loving, wanting to guide, wanting to help, being supportive. That seems to me to be more of a truthful observation than these other folks that are telling tales.
Well, there's these experiences, there is a certain connection there, that's for sure. And like you were saying, that some people have, for example, with alien abduction experiences. I did a podcast on it recently. I've been fascinated for years with this stuff. It seems it's an observation or perception of the experiencer. So it seems like that people who don't resist the experience and just go along with it, they usually have a much more pleasant experience, and even a very spiritual experience which changes their lives for the better. But those people who really are afraid and resist and try to fight it, those are the ones who end up having even PTSD from it.
Right. And, I wonder, was your experience just in your imagination? Because you are also generally the type of person that's unable to take responsibility for other areas of your life that are not going well. You are looking to blame others continuously, and why should this be any different? So,
yeah, that's true.
I don't know, I'm not trying to judge them. I'm just saying it's very odd to me that a certain group of people would have a fabulous experience and another group would feel that they were being maligned or destroyed in some way. But yet the group that feels hurt by the experience is also the group that is busy blaming everyone else in their surroundings for whatever is wrong in their life. It's never, gosh, I need to take more responsibility. It's always, oh, look at this horrible thing that person did to me. So, I just found an interesting correlation that the blamers also have a poor quality experience, and they have it across the board, whether it's ayahuasca, any kind of other drug or meditation or any of this work. It's always, oh, that thing was terrible, it didn't work, and it's just interesting to...
Yeah, it is a correlation there. I was just want to bring up the psychedelic experience, because that's, again, the same thing, like we were just saying, some people have wonderful experiences, life-changing, like myself, even though I'm not saying it was easy. It definitely wasn't. Because it dissolves your ego, and what is your ego for? To keep you alive. So it's clinging on like, I don't want this. But, I've heard so many times from people who had it, even Joe Rogan talked about it. When you start resisting the experience, whilst you're on DMT, ayahuasca, mushrooms, whatever, that's when it turns really bad. It can be very traumatizing, and it's not good. But the moment you let go and you just go along with it, and you let your ego dissolve and you just go with the experience, that's when it changes, and you can get something out of it, and you have a good experience. And it's an important lesson there.
Yeah, true of absolutely everything. Now, there is going to be no one right path for everyone.
Yeah.
So it is very important to recognize that we have different ways, and you need to find the way that is going to bring you the greatest joy during the experience. If you are constantly feeling under attack or at odds, you are probably not in alignment with that experience. There's another way. Find it. Don't give up. Just search until you find your right way.
Yeah, definitely. It does seem like all these different techniques, philosophies, everything, it leads to the same place.
Yes. And it's so important to remember that there is only one place. There's only ever going to be one landing place. So if you do find yourself out in the desert, out in the darkness, out in a place that you don't want to be, open your heart, ask for guidance back to the place of love. And don't judge, don't blame or criticize or condemn yourself or anyone with you. Just, okay, this is not where I want to be. Let's close your eyes, take a breath, relax. And whatever you want to call that primary source, for me, I love to call them the divine. So, or I might say, Mother, Father, God, lead me back to the place of love. I'm in this place of agitation. I'm in this place where I'm not feeling settled. Lead me back into the place of love. And you can do that whether you are using a plant or a drug or any other kind of hypnosis, whatever it is. You can always ask to be returned to the place of love. But if you find that you are resisting, it's also okay to say, this is just not working, and complete the experiment and try something new. You don't have to keep banging your head against the wall. If you didn't like it, there's probably a reason why you didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think heart healing is the best thing since sliced bread. It worked. It worked for me. It's the method they taught me. It has brought me so much joy and expansion. But there are many other modalities that you can use. Find what is going to work for you and stick with it long enough to get results. One session with someone, with any kind of guide, healer, whatever you want to call them, it's probably not going to be enough to undo the damage that a lifetime has caused.
Yeah, that's true. So on that note, let's slowly finish off. We've been already talking for almost 2 hours now.
Wow.
It was very fun.
It was fun. I love talking about the angels and the whole energetic world. And just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. Let's remember that we cannot see energy, but science has been able to isolate down to, what are they down to now? Electrons, but something
Quarks.
Beyond electrons. Okay. Science has been able to prove to us that all of this exists. So even if you don't have a science brain, don't dismiss it just because you can't see it. Allow yourself to open another way. Feeling is one of the ways that they communicate beautifully. And if you just feel that warm feeling, that warm hug, or you just feel better, that can be the sign that your angels are with you or near you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the main messages of this podcast, to be honest. If nothing else, that there is so much more out there than we think there is.
Yes.
We need to open up a bit more to it. And all this stuff, it's super fun to research. It's very interesting. But it does seem to invite us to open our minds a lot more, which is what we really need right now.
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that, because let's just commit to being open and understand the basic principle that is true for every person, no matter where you are, is that you are always safe and loved. Now, that doesn't mean that your physical body is going to exist forever, but the internal essence that is you cannot be created or destroyed. It was created, it now will last forever. So you are going to change physical bodies. This one is going to wear out. But the you that is you, is always safe, and you are always loved. So go ahead and experiment. There is no danger. The only thing that could possibly happen is that you push this physical container beyond what it's capable of, and you return to your energetic state.
It's very interesting. Another correlation here. I remember listening to Killing the E, who was a very wise person and very knowledgeable. He was a martial artist. He was specialized actually in some, I think it was an African, he was African-American, African martial arts, and he was doing entheogens, and he would take like super high doses of magic mushrooms. Right? Very funny and interesting guy to listen to. And he, on his talks, even just like very, very shortly before he passed away, I remember listening to this podcast with him, and he said that throughout those decades of taking high dose psilocybin, mushrooms, what he learned, probably the main message of it, was that within the vastness of the multiverse, the only thing that is impossible is to die and not to exist.
The you that is you is eternal. You can change forms just like you change clothes, but you are forever safe and always loved.
Okay,
now,
so
we can attract caregivers, parents, siblings, friends who don't love us, who treat us badly, but that will never change the fact that you are loved and you are safe. So let's not confuse the two. Everyone has free will, and they can choose to treat you in a way that may not feel good. You have free will. You can choose not to accept that or to go along with the pattern. But the one thing that cannot be changed and will never change are the divine. So the mother-father aspect of the divine has chosen to be only love and to be only acceptance. That will never change, no matter what you do. You can't pray your way toward a better relationship with them. They're not going to accept you more because you are praying. You also can't devolve far enough to escape from their love. You can limit your connection, but they are still going to love you.
Okay, so
you can't earn it, and you can't get away and you can't destroy it.
Yeah.
It just is.
That's very reassuring. So at the end of my podcast, I always ask a few questions to my guests to answer in a few sentences. So if there was one piece of advice you could give to people, what would it be?
To love and accept yourself just as you are. To allow yourself to be perfect in this moment, and by being and accepting perfection in this moment, recognizing that you're now giving yourself freedom to grow in whatever direction is for your highest good.
Great. And what do you think is the meaning of life?
To love, to plumb the depths and the heights of love, to experience all different ways of loving, beginning with yourself, and just to then become a vessel that is love, so that you are sharing it with all. But not romantic love. I'm not talking romantic love. I mean that unconditional love. To just be that and project that and to immerse yourself in it. That brings you everything you're seeking.
Mm-hmm. And where can people find you?
They are welcome to come to my website. It's mmhearthealer.com. MM for Marcia Martin. mmhearthealer.com, and join my mailing list right now. We are giving away one of the most beautiful meditations that I have experienced, leading you into the heart, opening that heart and connecting you with the divine. So please join our mailing list, take advantage of all the free resources that are there. If you want to spend time with the angels and you feel that you need a guide, you can certainly do that through my website. Or if you feel that you want to move beyond where you are, if you've experienced trauma or abuse, or you just want to deepen your spiritual journey, you can sign up to work with me also through my website. But first, take a look around. There's plenty of blogs, YouTube videos, ways for you to connect and be inspired and uplifted.
Great. Thank you very much for coming on my podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Well, thank you so much for being you, for having this podcast, for sharing new ways of thinking with the world, and for being willing to explore. We need more explorers in the world. If everyone committed, because if everyone committed to exploring, we would have no time to fear, and fear then breeds hate. And so if everybody is out exploring, they're going to be discovering, they're going to be expanding, they're going to be more in love with themselves and with their lives, and then they don't have time to get mad at the other guy.
Yeah, that's very true. So keep exploring, guys. As always, you can find all the links, whether it's to Marcia or myself and my services, down in the description. If you like this episode, feel free to give it a like, share, comment. Helps a lot. And we'll see you in the next one.